Hey, welcome back to the Invisible Strength podcast. If you're new here, I'm your co-host, Karen Wagner, the founder of Invigorate, and I'm joined by the amazing Chris Burton. Chris, how you doing today?
Doing well, Karen. Always a joy to be here with you for sure.
Thanks for being here. We love to have you. Today, we are thrilled to have Ernest Reyna join us. He is a javelin and discus thrower battling rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia. And if you know anything about those two diseases, they can be incredibly painful, unfortunately. But he's still competing at the collegiate level at East Texas Baptist University. Ernest, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you on.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Ernest, can you tell us about yourself as a person before you became a patient?
Yeah, so I was a pretty big athlete starting off. I had played organized basketball before I had started kindergarten. Basketball was my favorite sport. I played that all the time. Summer leagues, winter leagues, whatever it was, I was in basketball. And not too later, started football around 6th grade in order to get ready for 7th grade football. And even though I did good in school, all I really cared about was sports, mainly basketball. And, that's the dream. Of course, I was playing it all the time. I had dreams of being an NFL player, NBA player, making it far, going to college. And then, things just started happening around 8th grade. It was a little bit different for me. I came in one day and people went up to me and they were saying, Raina, you look a little bit bigger than you normally do. Asking about diet, if I've been, quitting sports, if I'm done with sports and whatnot, working out less. And I didn't feel anything different at the time. I felt pretty normal. So it was a shock having a bunch of people come up to me saying things like this and whatnot. And a couple weeks later, after people were mentioning that, I had started to get pretty sick. And that's what started my whole journey throughout the hospital and figuring out kind of what's going on with me throughout sports. And it just changed everything after that moment, really.
Wow, that's really powerful because I'm so used to, with a lot of these conversations and our journeys, people not being able to tell something was wrong, but you could kind of feel it. But you're saying, Ernest, that people noticed it and were questioning you about, your commitment to sports, the way you were dieting before you noticed it. Like, was there anything that kind of was happening that you were like, this seems weird?
Yes, to start off, it was more of just an weird weight gain. I was gaining a ton of weight. I was a really skinny person at the time. So, me gaining any amount of weight, anybody's gonna notice it.
Got you.
And
Okay.
so my diet never changed. I wasn't eating more. I wasn't working out less. If anything, I was working out more while
Right.
eating pretty much the same.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm starting to worry about things like, man, what is causing this? Is it real? Am I actually gaining weight? Because, I didn't see it in myself. And a couple weeks later, we don't know what it was exactly. The doctors don't know. We don't know. They never told us. I had gotten swollen here by my thyroid and, nothing ever happened from it. I got a prescription from the doctor. We went in. He never said anything. He took my symptoms, came back with the medication, swelling went away. And ever since then, I was getting tested for things like hypothyroidism. They had diagnosed me with hypothyroidism, and they said I had symptoms of hyperthyroidism. And a couple months of getting tested over that, they eventually said I don't have either and went back over everything.
Got you.
You were in eighth grade at the time, right?
Correct, yes.
Those middle school years when you're only worried about the next basketball game or the next football game. You're not paying attention to what's going on in your body, but it must have been weird to all of a sudden be changing. I'm not doing anything different. What's wrong with me? But then you go to the doctor and you felt like you got some answers.
For a little bit, yes. When that first diagnosis of hypothyroidism came, they were showing me all these different levels in my blood work that showed hyperthyroidism. And, in my mind, getting diagnosed with something, finding the problem is what I focused on. I was excited that they knew what the problem was, or that I thought they knew what the problem was at least, and that I could get some sort of help towards it. But then, of course, with more testing, that wasn't the case.
So how long did it go on before You kept getting more testing, and then how did you figure out what was actually happening?
So throughout my freshman year, that was when a lot of the rough testing was going on, just constant blood work, being in the hospital for hours almost every other day. Coming back from practice or coming back from the hospital, going straight to practice was always a hard thing. And I never knew exactly what was wrong. So I couldn't tell my coaches, hey, I'm doing this. It's just I was getting tested. They took blood work and that was it. And towards the end of my freshman year is when they started coming down on rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia.
That's
Goodness.
such a scary time when you don't know what's going on and all you want is answers and a diagnosis so you can get on with a treatment plan and move on with the rest of your life. Sounds like it was a long time of really trying to figure out what was happening.
Yeah, talking about it now, it seems like a lot less of a struggle, only about a
Right.
year or two. But during that time, it felt like forever.
So talk to us a bit about, with sports being so central to your identity. I see you wearing that wonderful Spurs hat and all that. I'm thinking about the way in which when you are committed to athletics, it can become this sort of like existential crisis of like, who am I if I can't play sports? Like, what ran through your mind as you were getting a bit more clarity about what was happening to you? Like, were you afraid that sports and all those dreams that you had mentioned before were a thing of the past? And if you did arrive to that place, like, how did you deal with it?
Yeah, so at first, kind of like I said earlier, when I got answers, knowing what was causing my problems, I felt pretty hopeful, knowing that I know the root to different problems and that there's something I can at least focus on to fix. But it was a little bit rough trying to adjust to everything. It started out as I can be that guy to show everybody, these conditions aren't hard and I can still make the NBA or
Hmm.
NFL
Hmm.
with these things and, be greater than my counterparts, right? I have this condition and I'm going out, being great. And that's kind of what I felt at the start. And it changed quickly for a short amount of time due to all the injuries that just kept piling up on me. And I had to start focusing on, I call them backup plans, but they're
Hmm.
what an athlete should focus on, which is college, your career, and things that are actually important,
For
that are
sure.
more reasonable than making an NBA or NFL roster.
I hear that. And to your point, because even if you do make it to the league, the average career is such a short thing. That's just like a slice of your life. Maybe it's 4 years, 2 years, depending on the league. That you absolutely need to have not a backup plan, but the rest of your life plan.
Yes, sir.
No doubt,
Season 2.
for sure, for sure.
Ernest, you mentioned there's a lot of injuries, and for a while you probably had to take a step back. How did you eventually get back into it? Because you're thriving now.
Yes. So in basketball, football, it's a team sport. If I have a bad day, there's a hole in the team. They're missing somebody on offense or defense. And that is what pushed me away from everything. Just having certain days where I'm not able to support that team is, it was hard mentally. I put it all on myself, like I was ruining the team or ruining situations. And, I just quit. It was half about injuries, but injuries were something I could fight through. So I just put that on top of everything else. And really what made me come back was track. I had a good coach from football who also coached track, and track is a little more individual. So I felt a little bit more comfortable coming into a sport where if I have a bad day, it's more on me than hurting an entire team.
Hmm.
I can appreciate your thoughtfulness about not wanting to let your teammates down.
Hmm.
And I can only imagine when you felt like you had to take a step back to not let them down, on top of having these diseases that had to have been a very difficult, dark time to get through. How did you manage through? Because then once you get to track, there's hope still. You're getting back into it. How did you get through the dark times?
That was a little bit rough for me to start getting into. Once I had originally quit track, it was coming off of all the athleticism and strength that I still had. And being out for, it was about 2 years, my sophomore and junior year, that I was not competing at all, just sitting inside doing literally nothing.
Mhm.
And I went back out expecting to be my same self, go full speed, full strength, and it led back to more injuries. So the biggest thing for me getting back into sports is understanding that I'm just not the same person that I was. I've taken time off, and nobody comes back from 2 years off being the same person, no matter
Right.
what they have, no matter who they are. So it it was more of a mental thing, trying to tell myself I need to slow down. My workouts need to be moderate. I can't tear anything. I can't go too crazy. And that was just more of the focus for me, keeping things easy.
I love that you bring that up, Ernest, because something I've noticed is that autoimmune conditions require athletic people or people who love to work out to sort of rewire their brain because for the whole life prior to the condition, you've been taught to work out to muscle failure. You've been taught to push yourself to the limit, to push yourself past the limit. Like, don't sell yourself short. Don't cheat yourself by working out halfway. But now the complete inverse is what we need. Like you have to work out halfway so that you can keep working out regularly. You have to make sure that you're staying nowhere near muscle failure so that you're able to go about the rest of your day. What sort of role or relationship do you have with conditioning now? Like, is it something where it's still difficult for you to pace yourself? Or is it something where you've said, I have to stay away from it entirely? Like, how do you interact with getting yourself conditioned now?
Conditioning is still sort of a hard thing for me. Like you said, I grew up pushing myself to the limits, and I sort of fell in love with those pains of being tired and having to put something more out. And, if I do that now, I won't be able to function for the next couple days. So
Mhm.
being out there, having to put in the work, knowing that it'll improve me, but not being able to, or at least thinking I'm not able to, is hard because I feel, when I run, I know it's not exactly at my 100% of what I can do at this moment.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's hard to put into my mind that it is 100% just for who I am now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm comparing 100% to the person I am now to the person who I was,
For
which
sure.
is hard.
Absolutely.
Talked about both with sport and conditioning, how you've had to reimagine your approach to sports and training. It's difficult in times when you feel like you have to hold yourself back to imagine a new future. Have you always been kind of adaptable, or is that something you've had to cultivate through this process?
I think I've always been pretty adaptable. Fighting through injuries, is something I've always done even before I knew I had these conditions. They weren't as common back then, of course, but little micro tears, micro strains, sprains, whatnot. It was always something I had fought through. So it didn't seem like too big of a jump for me. Preparing mentally for it, knowing that things would be hard, things would be painful. I wasn't too scared getting into it, knowing I've done it before. But of course, it's a lot harder than it seemed.
There's something about having previously worked through tough situations that really helps you build that resilience with these diseases and disorders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So take us through with the athletics that you do now. What does a preparation for that look like for you? Knowing all the the new ways that you have to do this and the sort of like creative ways you have to go about preparing yourself to compete. Like what does that morning look like all the way up until the time you're competing?
Yes, it's a major change from what I've done in the past. We try to make it as extravagant as possible. You see the Olympic athletes doing something, they're doing it for a reason, and I try my best to start following that, knowing that I need, a little bit more than the average person as well. So,
Mhm.
starting off in the morning, it actually starts the night before for us, doing yoga, different types of stretches,
Mhm.
ice or heat, depending on what type of, body pains that we have. And then it's the same thing in the morning. We're getting a bunch of stretches prior to the throws that we're about to do. Same thing, stretches. Usually stretch about 30 minutes to an hour more or earlier
Yeah.
than my teammates do. But that's the biggest thing is keeping things loose. Can't let them get tight. and then just breaking up all the body buildups from, like lactic acid and whatnot.
Right, right.
I give you credit. I know I need to stretch and it just doesn't happen.
I felt stretch shame too. I was like, my hamstrings crying at me, just like, do you not hear, Ernest? You need to stretch, man, stretch.
It's a hard habit to get into.
Yeah, yeah.
So are you pretty it sounds like you're pretty regimented with that routine and staying on top of it.
Sort of. I don't exactly have a routine. I do more of whatever my body needs. Of course, I'll get through the whole body, but I don't follow specific patterns or an organization to it. I just, whatever hurts the most is what I'll hit the longest and the hardest, and whatever's the least, I'll just make sure it's a weight.
Ernest, you mentioned your teammates and not wanting to let them down. How has your community and support network supported you throughout this process?
It's been absolutely amazing here at East Texas. There's people who, I mean, they won't even act like I have a problem with me at all. I'm struggling throughout conditioning workouts, and they're always there making sure I'm fine, making sure I'm doing okay, able to keep moving. Even smaller things, walking around during practice, they see me trip on a little pothole, and there's 5 or 6 hands already coming in to catch me, make sure everything's fine, make sure my legs are working fine, I didn't get hurt. And I don't show too much times where, I'm having a rough day.
Yeah.
If I'm having a rough day, you don't really notice, but a lot of the people here, they'll still check on me. Even if I look perfectly fine, they'll make sure everything is going well for me. And I really appreciate the people around me here at this school.
That sounds wonderful. Talk to us a bit about how you brought that up, because as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about experiences of those who are sort of like afraid to bring it up to, like, the employer, or bring it up on their team because they don't want to be, sort of viewed a different way. How did that come up with your teammates, and what were your feelings going into that first conversation?
So my feelings originally were to hide it. I wanted to just be myself. I didn't want anybody to see something that really wasn't me. A lot of people don't know about all these different conditions, rheumatoid arthritis, or even just being autoimmune in general. So telling someone without an explanation was a fear for me. But with the coaches, it was the same thing. I never wanted to tell them, and then I started having rough days where I would have to miss a practice, or I was having a really bad practice, and I just had to bring it up to them.
Of course.
But with my teammates, it wasn't too rough. I really only told the ones that I was working with: sprinters, throwers, jumpers, all the different groups of track. They kind of are a little bit separate from each other.
Right,
So
right.
even though I do talk to everybody, not every group does know
Yeah,
about it.
that's fair.
Like a need to know basis. I
Right.
can relate to that. You don't need
Yes,
to be
basically.
shouting it from the rooftops, but there's a
No.
time and a place where it makes sense to let them know what's going on. Ernest, what is for people not as familiar with rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia, what does a rough day look like for you? What are you battling?
A rough day it's extremely rough from the start, and honestly, that could be the hardest part of the day, really, is the start.
Yeah.
Waking up, you don't know if somebody came in and beat you with a bat while you were sleeping and broke your bones and bruises all over your body. It's terrible. And having to fight mentally just to get out of bed, it's easy to lay there and say, "Oh, it's so easy and will feel so much better if I stayed in bed, rested today, instead of, going to class. I can miss one day of class. I can miss one day of practice." But fighting through that, it takes so much energy to mentally get through that. And then, of course, you have to walk to class, back from class. You have to sit in chairs through this pain. Your back is hurting. Your knees are hurting. I don't take really any medication for anything. I try even staying away from just simple over-the-counter, like things like Tylenol. I usually like taking those if it's a very, very bad day, just so my
Gotcha.
body doesn't get used to taking it. But, it's just, there's a lot of confusion for me. Is this some pain that my body's giving to me, or did I get hurt? And that's probably my hardest part of the day, besides the waking up.
There are definitely times where it's that invisible strength where you just gotta push through it. But how do you decide when, all right, this isn't easy, but I still gotta get up, I still gotta do all the things, go to class, sports, whatnot. How do you decide to push through, or I need to rest? Like my body just hurts. How do you know?
So I am still a little bit rough on this. I will try to push myself through anything whenever I can. I imagine myself sort of in the worst scenarios of
Hmm.
like the effects of not doing the things that I should. And that's my motivation to get up, but with kind of just like waiting around it's a little bit rough. I'm sorry, I forgot the second half of that question.
You're good. I was just wondering how you decide when you have to push through or that you need that rest. And maybe you're pushing through, but then later on you're getting more rest and recovery time.
Okay. So when I am pushing through, I try my hardest to get through everything. And I'm not the best at it because usually the only times when I'll rest is when I'm almost fever like, flu like, I mean,
Hmm.
where you genuinely cannot get up, where
Right.
it's if someone was here telling me to get up, I couldn't. And it's not good for me, but so far that's mainly the only time that I rest, which is something I do need to work on.
I hear that. And, you're talking about rest, and I'm thinking about just the sort of like standard college student sleep schedule is terrible, right? Like most people are getting no sleep whatsoever. Um, but also talk to us a bit about like how you keep yourself fueled, like like what hydration looks like for you and the way you're eating and everything like that. Like, have you found that there are certain things that help you feel like your best self, or something that
Yes,
works?
hydration, of course, it's a big thing. I used to push it off a lot in my earlier years, and I was still out there functioning. They didn't all these things they mentioned happening, like kidney failure, the
Come
extreme.
on. Yeah, yeah.
I was like, hey, I don't have any of that. I'm doing fine with drinking the amount of water I have currently.
Right.
And of course, then the later years, I've started drinking a lot more water, focusing on electrolytes, not just purely water. When I'm out there, getting some salt in, getting some Gatorade in, whatnot, and it has helped a lot. My muscles feel a little bit stronger. I feel more capable being out in the heat. I've had
Yeah,
heat problems before,
for sure.
and just being out in the sun was rough. So that's definitely changed. Something I, almost forgot that I had problems with how much I've been drinking now.
Yeah.
Feel for food.
Hmm.
I've been, you know, bad diet, very bad diet to start off. Greasy foods,
Yeah,
all fast food. It didn't
sure.
matter what I ate. If it was in front of me, it was getting eaten.
Right.
And I had some talks with my coach, my current coach, and we had started switching up, eating grilled foods, eating less anything grease. You don't want as much carbs. Anything to keep the inflammation down in your body is
Right,
what I'm
right.
focusing on now.
And have you noticed a difference at all? Has it been helpful or
Yes, I've been doing a lot better.
cool?
There's just the energy with the way I speak, the way I talk,
Come on.
move, everything. It's a lot better.
That's awesome.
And when you get a little relief from that inflammation, you just feel like a whole new person.
The truth.
Yes.
Really
Yeah.
real.
And unfortunately, in high school and college, like your go-to is the fast food, and you're just fueling the inflammation, which doesn't help anything.
Tell me, what's a salad in college? I don't do they
Right.
do they have those?
Rarely. Rarely.
Diet can be a tough topic for people. Were you open to it simply because your coach brought it up, or how did you feel about trying to change it?
So I had, like I said, originally when I was first diagnosed, I was terrible with my diet.
Got you.
And the main reason for that was when I had that weight gain with the thyroid swelling, when I would talk to a lot of doctors, all different types of specialists and everything, they would tell me things about how I was eating too much and I'm obese now and I'm this and that. And that's all I heard was, eat less, not eat better.
Come on.
And I never ate more. So it never seemed like a problem to eat less rather than change what I was eating. And so I kind of ignored everything. It felt more personal, even though it did come from specialized doctors. the message just didn't sit in my head too well. And, growing up, I saw a bunch of people doing diet changes and getting improvements in their life, looking better, looking healthier, happier, more energized. And my coach had came to me, and that was just to seal the deal. If people were coming offering me help on their own, this isn't a doctor, this isn't someone I paid to talk to me or help me. They're doing this on their own time. And so it really set into my head after that one.
The approach is everything. And I'm sure at that time you're in 8th grade, you're like, I haven't changed my diet. I can't control this weight gain by eating less. It's not going to help. I can't imagine how frustrating that must have been.
Yeah, it was a rough one to deal with. The just not knowing sort of what condition I had was hard, and then them blaming it on me sitting around, not working out and eating a lot more was rough as well.
Just in middle school, especially, like,
Of all places, of all
that's
places.
tough.
I'm wondering, Ernest, like, so much of what allows us to get through things is seeing people who have gotten through it themselves. Like I remember for me, like when I had my diagnosis with lupus, I watched this documentary, like one of those like 30 for 30s on Magic Johnson announcing that he had HIV to the world back in the early 90s. I drew inspiration and confidence from that. Like if he could get through something that you know, um, should have been a death sentence for him back in 1991, then I could get through what I'm going through with lupus. Were there any figures, even if they didn't have fibromyalgia and RA, were there any people that you saw, like, in your life or in history, pop culture, that really inspired you on this journey?
Yeah, so originally it would be my mom and my grandmother. The
Awesome.
grandmother's my mother's mother, of course. And my grandmother had lupus and my mom has rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia as well. So it it was surprising to learn that they had conditions that affected them this way. And it wasn't until when I was diagnosed, so I was pretty old,
Yeah, yeah.
finding out the stuff about them. And, in my mind, I had to realize, like, all these days where they just seemed a little bit tired or a little bit annoyed, they were in a lot of pain and they were
Right.
hiding it, working through it, and doing well with it as well. And a big athlete, I guess, it wasn't rheumatoid arthritis or fibromyalgia. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but he had Crohn's disease.
Mm.
And it was during the finals, in the NBA finals. We were watching it with my sister, and it was after had been diagnosed with Crohn's.
Mhm.
And it was nice to see somebody out there similar to us, that can still do amazing things. And you don't see it too often. So being able to see it really showed us that we aren't held back and that we could do stuff.
That's really powerful. So you're saying that, you just kind of up until your own diagnosis, just always notice there's moments when your grandmother and your mom just kind of seemed a little slower or uncomfortable, but no conversation about it prior to.
Never exactly. There was little moments like as a kid you're always kind of hugging with your mom and
Right.
whatnot. So I knew I couldn't put my elbows into like her thigh or her arm or
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
knees. I knew I couldn't put a lot of force into a specific spot, but I never really questioned it. And that was just what I lived by. And it, I never exactly looked into different conditions like that either. I was
Hmm.
young, so I didn't know just being in pain that way was possible without it being visual.
Come on.
And we envision our parents as invincible, so it's hard to even think about they may have something
Come
they're
on.
battling.
Right. Real life superheroes.
Of course.
Yeah.
That must have been a shock when you actually did find out that this was all throughout your family. Are you the only guy in your family with?
Yes, I am. Nobody else has really any sort of medical thing that they're keeping up with. My brother, he does have a heart condition, a very, very rough thing that he deals with. But when it comes to autoimmunity, I would be the only one. Yes.
Ernest, you're talking about these people who've inspired you and gone on to accomplish things despite their diseases or illnesses. What is something that you've accomplished that you just didn't think was possible in your earlier days with this?
So I think me being able to actually come back to sports and compete at the collegiate level is something I never expected I would have been able to do, especially after my freshman year of sports. I really believe that everything athletic wise was over for me right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Not only just college sports or finishing high school varsity sports, I thought having fun was out of the picture for me.
Come on.
I believed I wouldn't be able to go out and play basketball with my friends, with my kids in the future
Right.
and whatnot. So it definitely changed a lot for me.
I appreciate that because with these diseases, there are times where you just have to quit sometimes and you have to take a step back. And during those times, it can feel so definitive.
Mm-hmm.
You're not only not going to get to play basketball, you're not going to even be able to like, go for a walk without being in
Right.
extreme pain. It's hard to even imagine a future life when you're in those periods. But I give you credit for being open-minded because as we've learned, if you're open-minded and don't shut down those doors, these opportunities open up and you're a testament to that competing at the collegiate level. It's incredible.
Thank you. And yeah, to finish, I guess sort of the back end of that question that I didn't mean to ignore it. Getting back into sports, that was like I said, the change from it being team to solo based was a big thing for me. But having different coaches, even in high school when I had started getting back into it, I had the different coaches accepting me, telling me, hey, it's fine if you have a rough practice, just do what you can. You don't need to sit out, you don't need to be here. Whatever you can do is what we're okay with you doing. And actually being able to go out there, see myself throw, see myself work out, put up good numbers, come back, do the things that I talked about, like resting, icing, heating, eating well, and seeing it transition to another day of workouts and the next day and the next day and continuously being able to do what I used to do is what really put me back into the sports.
Mm-hmm.
Focusing on the process one step at a time and ensuring you're doing all the things to take care of yourself. Good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it sounds like it's one of those amazing things where you're able to still perform and like all the work is being done on that back end of like, you like doing the rest, doing the proper nutrition, doing getting sleep and everything like that. Talk to me about what it feels like when you're able to compete, having gone through all that you're going through and then you're actually out there doing this thing that, is pulling on that invisible strength, but really just seemed against all odds even.
It feels amazing being out there and doing what I expect myself to do. Every time I'm throwing, I imagine myself, this is the final throw for the Olympics to get the
Come
gold
on.
medal. The whole crowds around me, the stadium's filled, and
Yes.
that's what I feel like every time I'm out throwing, even if it's just practice.
Hmm.
For me, it was a big win to be able to get out there, and then an even bigger win for me to be able to full throw and to
For
run
sure.
at full speeds.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a way that although we wouldn't wish this on anyone and wish that we didn't have to deal with this ourselves, it just really allows us to be really like grateful for each moment. Something that could easily just be a routine or maybe even a practice that you would complain about, oh, we got to practice again. But you really see how much we get to do this. And that's pretty awesome.
It's amazing, just working, being able to work is a
For
big
sure.
thing.
Yeah, no doubt.
There's an appreciation for just being able to show up, which is a big step sometimes.
Right.
Ernest, in those moments where you really need to dig deep for that invisible strength, how do you pump yourself up? How do you get yourself going?
Yeah, that varies for me quite a bit. It depends on the sort of situation I am. Is it a normal meet? Is it a championship style thing that we're going into? And usually when it's normal or something that isn't like a one-time go all go home, I'm just thinking about my family, I'm thinking about my mother, my grandmother, how you wouldn't tell that anything is wrong with them. If something was, they're going to perform like normal.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I need to carry that on, being able to go out there and I'm demanded of something right now. I'm demanded these 3 great throws, and, that's what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's a little bit more of a championship thing that I need a little bit more strength, or say I'm already hurting pretty bad, I dig in. I don't know if you've heard much from David Goggins,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yes.
I try to
My
get all
husband's
emotion out.
obsessed.
Right.
Yes, of course. Yeah, it helps a lot, getting all that emotion out and just putting it set. I need to do this.
Yeah.
People are hurting. People are doing things with that hurt. So I need to do it too. And I just push through for that moment. Luckily in track, it's not a whole hour or 40 minutes
Right.
of work. So I can push a little bit harder than I
Mm-hmm.
need to just for those couple throws.
Gotcha.
You're turning your pain into purpose.
Of course.
Absolutely.
And having those examples in your mom and grandmother is just so invaluable when you have such great role models like that. Ernest, what is a misconception or just something you get annoyed by when people bring up rheumatoid arthritis or fibromyalgia, maybe that they don't know or just kind of ignorant to, or it's just a misconception that you've run into?
Yeah, so I have a lot of problems with people not believing that things are real. You
Mm-hmm.
tell them this hurts. It felt like I had broken a bone. It felt like this tore. They
Right.
never want to believe you. I had a lot of struggles in the trainers explaining, different injuries, different things that I felt. Even times when I had gotten like X-rays or MRIs from the doctor's office, I come back I'm like, hey, this is torn. I need it taped, and they won't do anything for it. They
Yeah.
ignore it. I've had back in football after I had quit, I was talking with one of the coaches. He was also our teacher in history.
Mm-hmm.
So we were in a little huddle with my friends talking about football, and they had mentioned that I don't play anymore because of my arthritis. And he sort of giggled and laughed at me, and he was like, "So you're an old lady now?" And I really didn't know what to say. I just looked at him, and I'm not old, nor am I a lady. So it seemed like he was just pushing it off, like I
Mm-hmm.
was lying. Of course, obviously, it's not just older people. It's not just women who are getting this condition. Having that it was a little bit rough, trying to really prove to people that it is something that I go through, and I'm not making it up so I can miss this meeting or miss this day. I really want to be there. It's just it's real, and you can't
Mm-hmm.
tell from the outside.
In those times when people just don't understand, how do you advocate for yourself or navigate those situations?
Usually in the situations that I have been with those, it's people who won't really listen to what you say, and they don't really care either. Usually after that, I just resort to, I'm still me. I'm still able to go out and do this. I have done this. I
That's
am
right.
in sports, and at the end of the day, we're not less than anybody.
Right.
So it's just keeping a level of respect rather than trying to influence them at that point.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. It's not our job to educate everyone.
No. No. Because there has to be some level of good faith there and understanding, and if people just want to make presumptions without seeking understanding, why further wear ourselves out by trying to explain things to people who don't want to hear it?
Of course.
On a lighter note, let's shift gears. Sometimes just funny, awkward things can happen when you're dealing with these diseases. Have you had any embarrassing or just surprising moments where you just had to laugh at yourself because of something that's going on?
Yes, the one comes to my head quite immediately, and that was during my freshman year of basketball when I was getting a lot of the tests done. I had missed the start of practice because I was getting some blood work, and for whatever reason, this day they took a lot of blood. The vials
Mm.
were probably about double the size of normal, and they were taking about 10 to 12. And I had come back, no food, no water, anything in my system, straight to practice. As soon as I put the jersey on, walked through the double doors, everybody was on the line getting ready to run.
Right.
And coach called me. He said, Reyna, I'm glad you're back. Shoot a free throw. Tosses me the ball, and I go up, shooting my free throw. I'm trying to decide which rim I should aim for. I can't even see straight. And so I shoot it, airball it, and usually a miss alone means we have to run, but an
Right.
airball on top.
Yeah.
And so I immediately got back to practice, airballed in front of everybody, and we're forced to run. It was a rough time.
Trying to pick which hoop to hit.
Yeah, I could not see. I shot it to the middle one.
That's right.
It was just too short regardless, so
That's
either
right.
way.
But that's a testament to your character because you went off and ran.
Of course, I ran. I didn't tell them, hey, I can't shoot this ball, and hey, I can't run right after missing. So it's just what had to be done.
And sometimes when you shoot, you're going to get an air ball. It's just a matter of life. And so
That's
I
right.
give you credit for shooting anyway.
Thank you. Of course, yeah. You have to go out and make that attempt. You never know.
Ernest, you're an incredible person. Your story is amazing. It's been a joy to talk to you. But before we let you go, is there anything I want to give you the chance to bring up anything that we haven't touched on that you think is important just in general or about your diseases or anything you want to share?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I've wanted to share and sort of really tell everybody that I talk to and knows about my condition is when you're out there, even though it is collegiate level, maybe even pro level, and even just normal day, you're at work, you're walking around the street, there's people who are really, really struggling just to walk through there with you, just to be out and about doing what they need to do.
Mhm.
And, it's not as obvious as a person in a wheelchair or who had gotten parts of their bodies broken from things and, can't function because it looks normal. Everything looks fine. Everything looks like there's no problem. So just having a little more respect for people and understanding some things can be rough when they don't seem like it was my biggest thing.
I appreciate that. Everyone's always going through something, whether you can see it or not. So a little respect and kindness could go a long way.
Mhm. Well said.
Chris, thank you. Ernest, it was a joy to have you on. Thank you for sharing your story. If anyone wants to follow you on Instagram, where can they find you?
My Instagram is e3.reyna. There should be no one after that. I had recently removed that. I was about to add a one. It is just e3.
Awesome. Thank you. And for everyone out there, keep going. Hopefully Ernest's story resonated with you. If it did, please share it with a friend. We could all use the inspiration. Thank you and take care, guys.
Thank you.